Hello, everyone. My name is Alon Burstein. I am a visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and an Israel Institute Fellow in the University of California, Irvine. And I am here to give you the summary of the last 24 hours in the war between Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip. It is currently the eve of October 11th, 2023, in the United States, the morning of October 12th, 2023, in the Middle East. As always, I will remind you, if you're interested in what happened in developments of the last previous days or what happened in the initial opening of this current escalation on October 7th, please feel free to click on any of the links in the first comment below, and they will take you to either this. There's also links to a larger summary of the history of Israel and Hamas and the entire politics of Gaza. So, beginning with the ongoing fighting within Israel, there are currently still confrontations and or infiltrations occurring between Israeli military and police and Hamas terrorists within Israel. The reason I say infiltrations and or confrontations is because it is still, at this point, unclear if these are Hamas terrorists that initially infiltrated on October 7th and have been hiding out in the area since, or if these are new infiltrations. There were today confrontations that occurred in Kibbutz Zikim in Crimea and in Nir Am, all areas around the Gaza Strip. In Nir Am, 3 Hamas terrorists were killed. The IDF spokesperson did say that Israeli military was trying to target Hamas attack tunnels. Those are tunnels from Gaza into Israel, suggesting that these are new infiltrations. Currently, it is unclear. In terms of the ongoing fighting that is going on, starting with the Gaza Strip, right now we appear to be in a bit of a stalemate, with Israel amassing forces. There are currently over 360,000 reservists that have been called up. That are amassing around the Gaza Strip, being armed, planning logistics, infrastructure, all kinds of things like that. And everyone seems to be waiting for this ground invasion, which may or may not occur. Israel continues to carry out its aerial raids into the Gaza Strip. By now, reports are over 3,000 aerial raids that have occurred. The Palestinian Health Ministry reports over 1,100 Palestinians have been killed and over 5,000 injured. In turn, Hamas continues to fire rockets into all the areas surrounding the Gaza Strip. Going further and further north, there were rockets today that landed and hit a medical facility in Ashkelon, in the city of Ashdod, all the way going up to Tel Aviv, and Hamas even claimed responsibility for firing missiles all the way into Haifa, which is in the north of Israel. Hamas today issued several statements. First, they threatened to start executing hostages, those people, those civilians that they kidnapped on October 7th, if Israel were to target civilian areas without prior warning. So far, Israel's made no official response. Israel thus far has not targeted civilian areas without prior warning. It is targeting Hamas infrastructures primarily and the homes of Hamas operatives. It remains to be seen what exactly is going to happen. In addition to that, another development that occurred today is that Hamas appears to be responding to the fact that the majority of the international press is favoring Israel, quote unquote, in the current situation and making Hamas out to be this violent attacker that is constantly compared to ISIS. And Hamas responded in 2 ways. First, they announced, both through their own media channels and through the Al-Qassam Brigades, which is their military wing, that they were releasing a woman that was kidnapped with 2 children. And they even showed a video that showed a woman being left with 2 children at the entrance to the Gaza Strip and the Hamas fighters retreating. Now, currently, this is very unsubstantiated. There are no reports in Israel that this woman was actually released, and the IDF spokesperson actually suggested that this may be a video from Saturday when Hamas, in the initial attack, released a woman that was kidnapped with 2 children for reasons that are actually quite unknown of what happened there exactly. So right now, it is unclear. At the same time, Hamas released a second statement in which it vehemently rejected allegations that are being circulated in the international press of mass rape that its different attackers carried out on October 7th, and other gory attacks of violence that I'm not going to get into because I'm going to spare the viewers. Hamas is rejecting any allegations that it took part in this. It is not rejecting that it did massacre over 1,000 people, but rejecting these specific things. These things are important because they show that Hamas actually is attuned to the international pressure, to international public opinion, and is recognizing that it is currently favoring Israel and is trying to actually improve its position within this conflict. Going on to other regions, there's escalating violence that often occurs in flare-ups in the West Bank 5 Palestinians are reported dead after several altercations that occurred, one in the town of Jenin. And these are altercations and interactions that occurred both between Palestinians, not necessarily Hamas, and the IDF, as well as attacks that occurred by Israeli settlers. Meanwhile, in the north of Israel, there was an anti-tank missile fired from Lebanon into Israel, trying to hit some IDF infrastructures. And at the same time, there's an infiltration of 15 airborne drones, that is, unmanned aircrafts, into Israel from Lebanon. Some of these were shot down, some of these returned. This appears to be part of Hezbollah testing the waters and seeing what's going to be Israel's response, and sort of signaling that they are still in the game. This takes us to some of the political and international developments. In Lebanon, there appears to be growing concern that Hezbollah is actually going to enter into this war and going to answer Hamas's call of opening another front with Israel. Najib Mikati, the Prime Minister of Lebanon, has issued statements saying this is a war between Israel and the Palestinians, and while Lebanon clearly supports the Palestinians, it is not their fight, and they do not want anyone from Lebanon to be involved. Walid Jumblat, another very, very prominent Lebanese figure, specifically issued a warning against Hezbollah, asking it not to join the fray. And at the same time, however, there have been reports of more and more civilians that are fleeing southern Lebanon in anticipation of the fact that Hezbollah may join the attack, and Israel's retaliation is going to decimate large parts of southern Lebanon. So this is an ongoing development. Meanwhile, politically in Israel, a unity government, quote unquote, has been announced. Benny Gantz, one of the two main opposition leaders, is going to join the Netanyahu government as of tomorrow morning. They're going to set up a new government, and they're going to have a very, very elite war cabinet that's going to be made up of Netanyahu, Gantz, and several other prominent figures, specifically excluding the extremes in the Netanyahu government, sort of the hawkish right-wing elements. Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir are not going to be included. And this is likely going to facilitate Israel's ground invasion if and when that does happen. There's going to be a lot more unity in the country, because it's not just going to be Netanyahu's right-wing government, but it's going to be rather more of a broader coalition. Seemingly in anticipation of this ground invasion, there's more and more noise being made by the international political figures, that while they are showing unwavering support for Israel, they are also worried about what is going to be the results of Israel's invasion, and worried about the mass casualties that are going to happen on the Palestinian side. President Biden today, after having many conversations with Prime Minister Netanyahu, stated explicitly that in his conversations, he stressed to Netanyahu that Israel must abide by the rules of war. It must abide by the rules of war and not endanger innocent Palestinians as long as it can avoid that. Similarly, the Secretary General of NATO also issued a statement saying while NATO supports Israel's right to defend itself, Israel must respond only in proportionate manners. And similarly, the Secretary General of the United Nations also issued statements calling on Hamas to release all prisoners, all captives, all the people kidnapped, and at the same time calling on Israel to ease the siege on Gaza, to allow the entrance of humanitarian aid, specifically food, water, and different petrol that will allow the running of electricity and power plants. So there appears to be international growing concern over what might be coming in the next coming days. That is our summary of the last 24 hours, and I will be back tomorrow.